I'm Ben Tabak.
And I'm Ben Rubenstein.
And we are the best men.
And we're going to share a brief timeline of Jonathan's life.
So, Jonathan, we've been friends for a long time, going on 30 years now. And Benjamin, well,
I've known you since I was beating you in Atari right out of the womb.
And over the year, one of our favorite things to do together has been WWF, professional wrestling.
Whether it was watching WrestleMania, playing wrestling video games, or trying out our favorite wrestlers' ending maneuvers in the basement.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd come over, hang out in the basement. Jimmy would put me in the Iron Sheik's camel clutch till I turned blue in the face and passed out. Or he'd do the Undertaker's move and pile drive me headfirst into the carpet. It was just hours and hours of endless entertainment.
And WWF has been a big part of our lives. There's no longer any shame in admitting that, thanks to The Rock and only The Rock.
And last night we learned that the WWF has been a significant part of Lauren's life as well. She's apparently been to 3 live events. And as a child, her brother knocked out her front tooth practicing WWF moves.
Jonathan, we think that over time you've displayed the best qualities in some of our favorite wrestlers. So for our Best Men speech, we will review some of those qualities.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life.
Jonathan was a real American when he created the WWF Club in high school. Within a year of starting, it became by far the most popular club in school.
It was incredible. Unlike any other club, Jonathan started a WWF revolution at Osborne Park. I remember Jonathan standing in front of a crowded room, leading a meeting of so many people, they were spilling out into the hallways, and it was so loud, everyone arguing about the wrestlers, you could barely hear yourself talk.
That was when Jonathan blossomed into the person he is today. It all started with him sharing his love of men running around in tights.
Jonathan was an editor of the school paper, president of the WWF Club, and senior year, he and Michael Vick committed to Virginia Tech.
Ahem, the second best university in Virginia. Wahoo wah.
You can tell me what to do.
Jonathan was a lot like the wrestling group D-Generation X in college. He became increasingly known as Ruby, joined the Pi Lam fraternity, and certainly didn't do what anyone told him to.
It became part of a winning tradition as Tech became a national football powerhouse, making it all the way to the national championship.
Everybody's got a price.
After college, Jonathan started to invest a little bit. Just like the $1 Million Man. He started buying up real estate and owned multiple properties before he even turned 30.
And Jonathan, with the help of his friends, then created the now thriving Might As Well Bar and Grill.
By the way, Ben, you might as well take a drink now. We don't want your voice cracking like it did in the middle of your bar mitzvah speech.
Might as well. Okay. Jonathan then met the love of his life, Lauren. Initially, they were co-workers, but a romance soon blossomed. I started to think Lauren was a keeper when she wasn't scared off by the massive display of 5 flat-screen TVs in Jonathan's basement. all of which were running different sporting events all the time.
So did I and my parents. I even began preparing this speech long before I knew that he was going to propose, and obviously I scrapped it in favor of these awesome wrestling references.
Lauren, in all seriousness, I'm very happy that you and Jonathan have found each other. Jonathan is the most loyal and most dependable person I've ever met in my entire life. If you called... If you call Jonathan at 2 o'clock in the morning because you've just locked yourself out of the car with the keys in the ignition and the engine running, he will be there for you. And if you ask Jonathan to be somewhere at 6 o'clock, he will be there at 6 o'clock. Not 6:01, not 6:02, 6 o'clock. And if he says that he will love you and be there for you the rest of his life, there's no doubt in my mind that he will do exactly that. And I think all of his friends in his room would agree. He's been a groomsman more times than I think anyone here can count. He's kind of like the male version of Katherine Hagel in the movie 27 Dresses.
Whoa, hold up, Ben. Did you just say 27 Dresses? Tell me you did not watch that movie.
Who didn't watch that movie?
Okay, most of you know my story, so I won't get too graphic here. But there was this one time I had the hospital version of a serious case of Montezuma's Revenge. And I was in this big open room with the bathroom in the back. And immediately when you entered the room, you could see the open toilet, nothing covering it. And so to prevent people from busting into the room like nurses and doctors, I made Jonathan stand guard in the front. And he was standing guard until midnight. This was up in Bethesda, Maryland. He had to work the next day, probably delivering pizzas for Domino's when he was a professional Domino's employee. But this wasn't a unique occurrence. He sacrificed a hefty part of his young adulthood for me. And when I was at the bachelor party, everyone was saying that basically they would stand in front of a train for Jonathan. And Ben and I concur with that. We will stand in front of a train for you, Jonathan, and Lauren as well. And also, I'll stand guard anytime you have Montezuma's Revenge.